Howdy, Legendary Void here, and today I have a really cool video for you all. I'm going to be discussing the potential meta and analyzing what might happen in the Encounter 2 of Bayformers Season 2, which is called Even Stevens, and if you can tell by the name, only the even-numbered sets are legal. So Wave 2, Rise of the Combiners, Wave 4, Siege 2, as well as BFA and BFB, so World Strike and Wastelands will be legal, on top of the 1C legal cards, so Mecha Star, Lion Weight, Hand of Adaptism, all of that. So let's get this started, and I wanted to lead off by talking about what we are actually losing, which are kind of a few important pieces for both blue and orange. Orange is losing Matrix, Grenade Launcher, Supercharge, and Combat Dagger. These are some of the biggest losses for orange decks. There are alternatives to most of these. Fight Precision in place of Supercharge, Power Punch in place of Grenade Launcher, and Matrix doesn't really have a replacement, neither does Combat Dagger, but I guess Backup Beam in this case, but that's a completely different story. As for blue, they're also losing a couple of big pieces that they might want, being Laser Cutlass, Energon Axe, Leap into Battle, and the bigger they are. You'll notice most of these losses are from Wave 1. It's just Wave 1 just had such a massive impact on the game that losing some of these cards will be detrimental to a lot of decks. Moving on to more specific stuff, most sideboard pieces will be losing Hollow Matter, Counter Espionage, Hold the Line, Spy Set, and Spymaster's Ruse. These will make it to where secret actions are going to stay in play a lot more because of the loss of Counter Espionage. Direct damage is going to be a lot harder to stop since Hollow Matter doesn't exist in this format, and Devi is no longer hindered by Hold the Line. So that's a thing. I guess Stealth and Brave are also going to be a lot more abusable in this format as well. And then Spy Masters, well, yes, Counter Espionage is gone, so they can't go away. They're also not going to stay for too long, since Spy Master isn't here to keep it on the field. Again, moving on to some more specific stuff, we have cars are losing Start Your Engines and Turbo Boosters. Not that there are a whole lot of cars that you get to use anyways, because most of the big ones, Wheeljack, Cliff Jumper, Prowl, all of them are gone because Wave 1 just isn't legal. But these are making it a little bit harder for cars to stay in the game. Devastator loses Erratic Energy Grenade as well as Heat of Battle, not pictured here, but he still has a whole lot of other tools. He's got plenty of orange-black pieces as well as Designated Target to keep him around. Galaxy Prime loses Energy Pack, which in my opinion, I think that alone keeps him from being played in this tournament. Because there aren't a whole lot of replacements right now. There's Auxiliary Fuel Tank, I think is what it's called, from BFB, but that only gives him a +2, which in the end isn't really worth it. So I honestly don't think he's going to make an appearance here. Junkions are going to be losing Papa Wheelie. I don't think they like this card as much as you might think, but it isn't a tool for them, so they don't even have to worry about it. Stuck on You can no longer pull in Ghost Shields. Wave 5 isn't legal, so Ghost Shield is not going to be that big of a deal for two-eyed teams. They're going to be wanting to play other things such as, I don't know, Sparring Gears, Lagarten Swalders, that sort of thing. Belligerents and Inhos are both gone as well. These big introductions from Wave 5, neither of them are going to be making an appearance here. And a lot of people are going to be very excited about that because Belligerents is widely considered to be such a broken card. And in Hostilities is kind of the same as well, but not having either of these in the metagame is very good. Tanks lose Hunker Down, which I don't think tanks are going to make a huge appearance in this anyway, but they are losing this neat little piece that they have. Now overall, it might seem like Orange is losing a lot of good pieces. I mean, hell, Grenade Launcher and Belligerents are both gone, but they do still have a lot to work with. Looking over here, they do have Mecha Star, which is the 1C replacement for Fusion 4, Pierce 2/2, and Scraps after you attack. It's a very good card for getting Pierce through, even if it is a weaker version of Fusion Board. A lot of people are playing it in favor of a lot of other cards, and in this format where blue might see a little bit more of a lean in a lot of decks, Megastar is a good card for getting some damage through. And then Bashing Shield, of course, is also another good aggro option for just getting rid of enemy armors, as really the only options we have are Vaporize, not even Ramming Speed. We got Vaporize, Bashing Shield, Enforcement Batons. There aren't a whole lot, especially since Impetuous and Disarm aren't allowed in this one. Moving on, aggro still has a lot of good pieces they get to work with, even despite losing Grenade Launcher and such. They have Power Punch, Fight for Position, Wedge Formation, Designated Target, and Erratic Lightning, which you'll notice most of those are used in Devastator decks. Designated Target and Erratic Lightning being two of the big ones, as well as Fight for Position, just because the amount of black you want to run in those sorts of decks. So don't be surprised if, even though Malevolent Architect isn't allowed in this one, you're going to see some variant of Devastator, maybe with Scorpulator, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes in the tournament. I feel like he's going to make a showing, whether it just be regular Devastator or with Scorpulator. Blue also still has some resources to work with. They got Sparring Gear, Hidden Fortification, Sabotage Armaments, Tetranite, and Turnabout. And these are all really, really good secret actions. And then, Sparring Gear's he's kind of here. But since counter espionage is no longer a thing, you don't even have to risk the gamble of them being able to call out whatever you're playing. And you just get all of these awesome secret actions that are basically going to get put into play unimpeded. Now, moving on to the characters, let's start by looking at the combiners. The combiners are all here. These are all the legal ones, unless I missed some, which I don't think I did, but these are all the legal combiners for this tournament. So all the Wave 2 combiners, as well as Abominus, Thunderguts Gilthor, Roadmaster, Skytread, and Captain Omega Supreme. Now, which one of these do you think are still going to be competitively viable? Alright, time's up. If you guessed these three, you are correct. Probably. This might be a bad take, but Devastator still retains a lot of the pieces he needs to make his deck run, mostly the orange-black stuff, as well as Designated Target. And Superion remains a very, very good combiner when it comes to just tanking a lot of hits. His built-in Tough 2 and Pierce 3, as well as the deal 3 damage to whoever you want upon combine, makes him for a very strong contender, on top of In the Name of Slingshot, which gives you Power Glide on your starting team at the cost of 4 of your aerial bots taking a damage. And then of course there's Thunderguts Gilthor, which is kind of working upon the whole idea of blue being a very prevalent concept in this tournament. Gilthor and Stockpile both very much like to defend, and Thunderguts Gilthor on top of that just makes for a very, very powerful force to be reckoned with, especially with the built-in Pierce 4 and the very cool station. What is it? Annihilator Cannon? Very, very cool. Of course, you need the stratagem to make it all work, but I think Hawk has done this fairly consistently, so if you can get it to work, then go for it, man. I think Thunderguts is a very good deck, and it's a little hard to tech for it. It's very hard to counter against, and you need Stockpile and Gilthor, both pieces, to make sure it works, so it's a little hard to protect both of them at the same time, especially considering Stockpile has 1 or 0 defense. Obviously, you can use Hodgepodge Panoply. I believe I'm saying that right. Cards on screen, but it's going to give the attacker Drifter so that he's going to be taking a lot less damage than he would otherwise. Plus, he moves damage back if he takes 4 or more. So very powerful ability, and can stop massive hits from coming into him with just a single armor. Obviously, Bashing Shield is a good counter to that, and I think it will. But who knows? Maybe he's going to make a surprise appearance and do astoundingly well. Moving on to the Titans, I think Last Line of Defense has a very, very good chance in this tournament, especially, again, with the whole idea of blue being very, very relevant. Stuck on You might not be able to get Ghost Shields anymore, but Composite Armor is still legal, as well as a couple other very good armors that you could be running. And if you really want to, I've got your back. You get to untap one of your characters after one of them battles, which means that Countdown, probably Countdown, will get to swing. And on top of that, Countdown relies on stealth and the Brave from Last Line of Defense, and since Spy Stat isn't around, there is no way to get around that. The only thing is Hollow Matter's not around to protect Countdown from any direct damage, so you're pretty much just relying on your opponent not having a whole lot of that, which is nice because Cameo Crash and Precision Fire are both not allowed since they're both from wave 5. Basically, you just kind of have to pray that they're not running a whole lot of direct damage in their deck, which I don't think is such a big issue, which again makes this a lot more competitively viable than it might be otherwise. I believe Octone stands as the only really competitively viable triple changer in this tournament. Yes, there's going to be a whole lot about Junkions and Quintessons running around, but if you really wanted to, you could pair him up with Rabble Rouser, which is a counter to both of those, and that makes it to where you're able to cover the entire board with extra damage, as well as just he's a very good triple changer mercenary character with a very good bounty, and even so you could side him out for someone else, say maybe Gilthor, and you'll still be doing amazing and cool things with him. Next up are the new characters added to the game from Wastelands, the Junkions, and this is a very crazy deck to play, mostly because of the whole vehicle mechanic and the things they do with their battle cards. Deceleration Laser, Hodgepodge, and everything else you see on screen. They're just such incredibly powerful cards. Obviously, they all suffer from having Bandit or Drifter. Wreck-Gar is an exception unless you have upgrades on them that do the thing that you see on the card on your screen. But I think the aggro version of Junkions will do a lot better than the defensive one. Obviously, because Deceleration Laser is a very powerful card, and not a whole lot of people, I bet, are going to be running Enforcement Batons to get rid of it. So that means that any blue your opponent's going to be flipping is going to be irrelevant because now they have Bandit. These Drifter ones are perfectly fine. Again, it's just a matter of are they going to be able to outdamage without tools like Leap into Battle and Laser Cutlass, which I think the answer is no. Moving on to some old classics and some new additions, we do have the Sharkticons remaining as a very prevalent force in the aggro department. There are 3 different ways to play them now too, with Muck Sergeant Peck and Sharkatron joining the fray from BFB, doing some really cool things with these little guys. On top of adding a new Sharkticon to the mix, Ripper Snapper. Yes, that's right, you heard it here first, folks. Sharkticon, Ripper Snapper. He's a Sharkticon because he's a shark, I guess. I think that's the intent. But he's here and he does things probably better than Gnaw. Probably anyways, who knows. If you want to play the Gnaw strat, that's up to you, but maybe not the best. Chomp also got a new strat in BFB that makes him a lot more competitively viable, even just by himself, as well as Writhing in the Deep, just making Megatron almost better than Deliberata in this list. But that's up to, I guess, player discretion if you want to play any of these lists. They're all very cool and they do very cool things. Sharkticons have always been a fascinating deck to play with and against because they just do so many things all the time. In juxtaposed to the aggro disposition of the Sharkticons, we now move over to the Alicons, which have a new addition to their squad being the High Balif Bolag, who does really cool things in his bot mode, but for some reason it shows up as a clench on my TTS. I have no idea why. But on screen you can see that anytime your opponent plays a weapon onto one of their characters, it gets -2 attack until end of turn, which is a very good defensive tool, making it to where if they want to play a weapon, they have to prep it on a character beforehand, which gives you ample opportunity to set up your sabotage armaments or your enforcement batons to make it to where those weapons won't actually do anything. Bolag stands to be a very good defensive tool. I think Alicons might just be the best blue option for Even Stevens. Buried Banquet with Ayuk, very underrated. I know a lot of people are sleeping on this card, but it is a very good stratagem for getting rid of things like Mecha Stars out of people's decks. And then they also have their tools from BFA, Insurance Write-Off, Maceration Laser, on top of a new tool from BFB, being Lagartan Spalders. Just an incredible armor, making it to where your opponent has to pray to the Lord Jesus that you don't have a green card in your hand, because then you just get to go shield it and keep it in play, because it's just a really good card. +1 tough one. Oh my goodness, great. And on top of that, Ironic doesn't let the attacker have Pierce if they're not a specialist. So it's just he's just really good, and he's got the bot mode effectively of Ransack, so he can hit like a truck if you really need him to at a desperate time in the game. It's just a very, very good set of characters. Whoever you want to be the 4th character is up to you. But I personally really like this list. Unfortunately, they do suffer from the lack of Laser Cutlass and the bigger they are. However, they do have a lot of other tools, namely Mensuration Laser, to get their damage through. But it remains to be seen whether or not this team is good enough to win. Another cool tool from BFB is the Combat Deck, which is a vehicle stratagem that allows you to basically, if you have a truck on your starting team, have a bunch of floating stations on the battlefield that your characters can take and do really cool things with, like have stealth at the beginning of the game, or repair, or do extra damage if they have weapons. It's a very, very cool stratagem. Unfortunately, it does cost 3, so you have to be careful who you're playing it with. Powertrain is legal, so if you want to just pair it with a 5-star character, you're more than welcome to just throw it on Powertrain. On top of that, there is Extermination Exercise, which is a Dark Awakening Optimus Prime stratagem that combines on top of Combat Deck to make it to where if one of your characters battle a character of the same faction while in the Combat Deck, yes, that's a mouthful, they get +1 attack and defense, while also the attacker, or defender in this case, gets -1 defense and -1 attack. So basically it's just a +2/+2 to you. In effect anyways. Very good stratagem. Who knows if it'll be utilized to its highest extent, fullest extent, that's the word. But yeah, no, definitely an option for somebody to run if they really want to. Moving on to more characters that are potentially usable in this format. Gilthor is a big one, mostly because of his ability to negate Pierce when the attacker flips orange-black. This is a very big tool against Devastator, because Devastator wants to flip as much Pierce as possible, and it is strictly an orange-black deck 90% of the time. There are blue variants, very rare though. He hurts Devastator in the flip game because he can flip them to another mode and reset them back from combining. Crash Bash is a very good tool as well, one of the few remaining playable Headmasters now, with just a really good ability in Assault mode that gives him +2 attack as long as you flip less orange than his defense, which is 2. Obviously you can modify that with certain heads like Arcana. Arcana isn't legal. There are things like the Quintesson heads, which are being shown on screen. There's Quig, which reduces Pierce if you're going the blue route, and there are a couple other options shown on screen like Locos. Then of course there's the old faithful Decepticon Exhaust, which combined with Brutal Conditioning makes for a very, very strong powerhouse, making him a 6/15/4 just for taking a couple of damage from his own ability, really, simply just because he pings himself. Very, very strong character, and at 10 stars leaves a lot of room for you to work with. So if you want to go aggro, you may not have the Cars tools to work with him, but you definitely do have a very strong and easy to do option for just getting a very strong character out in the field fairly quickly. Outside of BFA though, there aren't a whole lot of options. Wave 2 was very disappointing in terms of their characters outside of a couple combiners, obviously Devastator and Superion. But from Wave 4, we do have Lord Megatron and Captain Jetfire. Obviously, Lord Megatron doesn't have his tank tools. If you're really looking to do some damage, his bot mode is incredibly powerful, and every time your opponent shuffles their deck, they're going to be taking damage equal to this character's attack. Which, if you look over here, most of these aggro options are bold, which means your opponent's going to be going through your decks very, very quickly, assuming it's an aggro deck. While Jetfire actually does still have a couple options. He might be a very, very large character, but he does have the option of running with Tailwind and another Airstrike Patrol. Even though you can't run a whole lot of different variety of Airstrike Patrol, you do have the option of running a 4-star and a 5-star one, which means that makes the full team. And he still does the same things he does otherwise, drawing cards, yada yada yada. And that's pretty much it. My big take and the final wrap up of this meta analysis is that blue's going to be really good. Yes, there's going to be a lot of anti-blue stuff going around, say Junkion's and their deceleration cannons, or just Devastator and his Pierce, but overall, blue has a lot of resources, mostly in these secret actions, and Superion just being able to do blue things, and Thunderguts being able to do his own thing. Overall, I think blue is going to make a very good showing, and even potentially go all the way to the top. Looking at all the things that are going to be gone from the tournament, it just really seems things are swinging towards blue, especially since Counter Espionage can't get rid of their secrets. Even if they are losing Spy Masters, I think that's less of a detriment to them. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you all so much for watching. I had a blast thinking about this and doing a really in-depth look at all of this. Hopefully I can cut this down to be pretty digestible for y'all to watch. If not, 20 minutes is probably fine, right? Anyway, thanks to y'all for watching, and as always, have a phenomenal day. Peace.